1 menit lagi kita admit ya.
Ini langsung share screen gini aja nggak apa-apa?
Iya, langsung share screen aja. Sama hai.
Tuh udah 9:06.
Aku admit sekarang ya. Ready.
Yes, thank you.
Maria Revo ready ya.
Oke, udah live.
Halo, selamat pagi. Good morning everyone. Welcome to All in the Space Edu Fair event. Kita masih bakalan tunggu dulu teman-teman yang lain karena masih ada beberapa yang belum masuk ke Zoom link-nya karena kita baru buka juga. So we'll wait for a bit ya.
In progress.
1 second. Yes. So good morning, everyone, students, parents, and teachers. Welcome to All In Edu Fair. Wish that this event would give lots of insight for your university application preparation. Pasti banyak banget yang lagi siap-siap, banyak banget yang lagi bingung gitu kan. Gimana sih caranya supaya application-nya tuh diterima dan sebenarnya as strong as other applicants juga, or even sebenarnya pengennya better gitu kan. Dan semoga sesi pertama ini juga bisa ngebantu kalian untuk topik Be a Competitive Applicant for Global Best Universities, dan nanti kita juga bakal lihat agenda untuk hari ini. So before that, I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Citra, your host for this session. Nanti aku bakal hand over juga ke teman-teman yang lain yang bakal sharing a lot of good things with you guys. But before we start, maybe ini pertama kalinya untuk beberapa dari kalian attending all-in event kan. Jadi sebelum kita mulai ke sesinya, let me introduce All In Edu Space to you. Boleh di next slide? Yes. So yes, All In Edu Space is an independent university consultant that we are not affiliated with university. All our advices are 100% purely based on our mentees need. Jadi karena kita nggak represent any university, jadi semua yang kita recommend ke students ya pasti itu untuk kebaikan our best suited untuk studentnya sendiri, especially our mentee. So our mentee are from grade 7 to grade 12 who are planning to apply to top universities around the world. So we help them through our admission mentoring program. Jadi ada dua hal sih yang happen at the same time di admission mentoring program gitu. Yang pertama adalah application preparation itu sendiri untuk pergi ke untuk apply ke dream universities yang very competitive ini, dan the second one is buat profile building gitu, karena nggak gampang untuk apply ke university ini. Kalian perlu profile yang strong gitu, karena kalian akan competing with students around the world. Nah, not limited to that, we care about the mentee's dream career too gitu. Jadi kalau misalnya kita nggak mau nih sampai mentee itu salah pilih major, salah pilih career, karena ini very very important for us juga gitu. Kita nggak mau mentees itu wasting time and money cuma karena salah pilih major. Jadi kita juga punya exploration program juga. Yang sebenarnya juga also included the admission mentoring for our mentee, tapi kita punya separate one for community empowerment program. So we guide and assist the mentees exploration to find out their interest by contohnya meeting professional, terus mungkin kerjain personal project, juga ada internship placement and many other program gitu. Yang recently kita juga pergi ke Salatiga, ke K untuk do volunteering dan juga sekaligus untuk personal project our mentee. So basically through our admission mentoring program dan juga career exploration ini, we want to make sure that the students or our mentee pick the right major for their top universities application that will bring them closer to their dream career. Tapi di luar itu juga kita punya program lain juga karena ada kebutuhan untuk test prep, untuk mungkin mentoring untuk subjek. Jadi kita punya academic test prep and writing program juga separately sebagai add-on dari produk-produk yang kita punya. Jadi services ini adalah main service yang all in provide untuk students and parents. Nah, sebelum itu kita mau nonton video dulu, just for you to know all in better. So here we go.
The idea started when we were preparing for our university applications back in high school. At that time, there were no agencies or institutions that could accommodate the admission process to top universities abroad. School counselors, proper SAT courses, or other university preparation mentoring programs specifically for universities with competitive acceptance rates were also unavailable to help students. At that time, it forced us to write our own essays, CV, and practice the interview for the universities by ourselves, with support from fellow friends, not professionals. Without proper guidance, the application process seemed so complicated to us. Even our friends and relatives somehow lost their determination to get into top universities, scared to dream big. All in EduSpace is here to be the pioneer of students' educational journey, empowering students to reach their aspirations by opening access to top quality learning, education opportunities abroad, such that they can lead an impactful life in their role as a member of their community. We also aspire to be the role model of student-focused informal education platform in Asia.
As we help students apply to universities, we also empower them to always dare to dream, because their dream is unlimited. We wish students to have the attitude to take their own future, whether it is to study abroad, get into top universities, or figure out their major that will lead to their own successful career path and future. Along with the spirit to dream, we also push them to put their best work in their university application preparations, because it's all in the prep. If the students work harder, we're willing to work even harder. Apart from delivering tailored mentoring curriculum to each student, we constantly strive to give all-around university prep by providing personal development guidance, such as developing leadership, communications, critical thinking, and analytical skills in order to open the doors to world-class education abroad. Our mentors are graduates of world's top universities with various academic backgrounds and work experiences. These diverse backgrounds help us to achieve a shared vision to empower our students with the real-world skills needed and an extensive network to achieve their dreams beyond college.
To achieve our vision and our mentees' goals and dreams, we go all in through our 4 pillars: academic performance improvement, exploration and profile building, personal branding, and soft skills development. We don't believe in the one-size-fits-all principle when it comes to education. Therefore, we provide tailored guidance for each student's needs with our admission mentoring, academic tutoring, and standardized test prep programs.
We not only focus on students' academic success, but we also help students to explore their dream career paths, equipping them with the industry skills that they need to thrive while also foster an awareness of the impact they could have on the community. Our mentors provide insights on the skills, experiences, and industry knowledge students need beyond their academic pursuit through coaching sessions. We help students confirm their interest, establish career goals, and find the right university major for them through career bootcamps, work and community empowerment programs, interest-based student clubs or projects, competitions, and many more.
We have successfully guided hundreds of our mentees to their dream universities, with 100% of them accepted to more than 350 top universities in the world, including in the US, Canada, UK and other European countries, Asia, and Australia.
In the end, we aspire to be the top of the mind space for students to explore the kinds of education that they couldn't get through school or formal institutions.
Therefore, our name represents the purpose to serve students' needs all in one place.
All in EduSpace.
Jadi itu mengenai All In. Semoga yang baru pertama kali datang ke acara All In, nah sekarang lebih tahu lagi kayak visi misi yang kita punya. Dan tapi aku mau ngejelasin sedikit tentang 4 pillars yang tadi dijelasin di video. So we mentor our mentees using these 4 pillars. Jadi yang pertama adalah academic performance. This is very important because your historical performance is an indicator for your future performance. Jadi kalau misalnya dari nilai SMP, SMA aja nggak begitu bagus, meanwhile studentnya masih tinggal di rumah, masih dibantu belajar sama gurunya, masih bisa ngeles, masih ada bimbingan orang tua juga, tapi nilainya nggak bagus, jadi university itu agak ragu gitu, will you do well gitu di university life, meanwhile nanti bakalan sekolah di luar negeri, bakal coba kayak lebih banyak challenges yang bakal dihadapin. Jadi that's the main reason universities look for academic record deh, kayak biasanya dari kelas 9 onwards gitu kan. Jadi itulah alasannya kenapa university selalu tanya tentang nilai. They can tell how good of a student you will be based on your grades. That's why universities care about your school grades. Second one is exploration. It is very important for you to experience many things and discover your passion so that you can choose the right major and set a clear career path in the future. Moreover, to get into the top universities, you need more than that, more than good scores. Most unis look for an active students to see your leadership potential, personal interest, as well as how you manage all that while maintaining good grades in school. Jadi untuk exploration ini juga sebenarnya selain untuk milih major ya, untuk kasih lihat juga gitu quality kalian sebagai applicant. So it is very very important to start exploring in early stage. Third one is a personal brand, because you need to shape your personal brand that reflect your academic and personal interest. Jadi kombinasi antara academic and personal interest. You need to show that you are unique, and having a compelling personal brand we are sure that it will make you stand out from other applicants. Last one, writing skills. Kenapa? Karena getting good grades, exploring, and creating your personal brand is only 50% of the work. Baru setengah aja. Kenapa? Karena the rest of it is how you can communicate. Make sure semua itu tersampaikan, kualitasnya, kerja keras kalian ke universities. Karena mereka nggak pernah ketemu kalian, jadi satu-satunya adalah lewat interview atau essay gitu. But not all universities invite their applicants for interview, so your chance to show off might be through your writings. Jadi make sure writings ini berguna untuk writing skills ini berguna untuk kalian yang ada di international schools, untuk grades juga, dan satu lagi untuk kenalan sama university. So I think that's pretty much from me. I need to pass it on to Nick. So I'll call out Nick. Hi, Nick. Hi, I can see you there. Okay.
Yaudah, I'll skip this slide ya.
Ya, jadi nanti kenalan sama Nick, and this is the agenda. So you can learn from Nick how to be a competitive applicant for top university application. So yes, here we go.
Okay, hi everyone. Kenalin, my name is Nick. So I'm one of the mentors here at All In. So today, ini basically what I want to talk about is like how you can become a competitive top university applicants. And specifically for this session, I'm talking about US University ya, gitu. So it's more focused on US University application. And that's the first thing that I'm going to talk about. And then yang second, aside from being competitive, how can you as applicants kick it up a notch and get some scholarships or at least find some scholarship opportunities and get to know like how gimana sih caranya, maybe briefly how you can prepare for scholarships. And then last but not least today, I'll talk about university shortlisting strategies, because with proper strategy for like picking your universities where you want to apply to, itu can really make your life much easier lah gitu. Jadi basically instead of you being a shotgun apply semua, you lebih kayak sniper mode gitu lah ya, lebih pilih-pilih gitu kan. Kayak yang which ones is like a best fit for me, and instead of like just I mean tembak semua gitu. Okay. So, right. So first things first, how to be a top US university applicant. So ini just a little bit, these are the requirements for US universities application ya. So for other countries, itu they will need like some of this, but tapi not as rigorous, not as holistic as US universities. So that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about applications for US application. Because if you're prepared for US application, US university application, you're basically taken care of for like other countries' university application. Okay, so here in this table, we split it into like three categories ya. Because di Indo kan ada yang sekolah nasional kurikulum, like Sanur, CC, and other sekolah swasta kan. The majority of sekolah swasta di Indo gitu. And obviously ada yang international curriculum juga, yang ada adopting A-level, IGCSE A-level curriculum atau IB curriculum. And Another option is yang udah di community college, whoever mungkin mau angkat tangan yang di community college right now, juga ada requirements-nya juga gitu. It's similar tapi a bit different gitu. So I'll go through this maybe like per row aja kali ya gitu. So for first things first, for application requirement is obviously your grades. So tadi Citra udah bilang kayak academic performance kan, we help you guys with the academic performance juga. So it's important because basically itu I would say it's maybe around 40-50% of yang what they see like the first time around. Like basically it's like the first screening process ya, grades-nya gitu. So even it's a holistic, so that's why I say it's like only 40-50% ya gitu. So for national curriculum, you need to make sure kayak di translate ke Inggris ya, because you're applying to like kalau US kan you're applying to like a English speaking, so you have to translate your report ke Inggris through certified translator ya gitu. And for international curriculum, biasanya kan udah in English, so just ask your school to submit it to the universities that you're applying to. And for community college in the US, and I'm talking about community college in the US, it's even more straightforward. Basically, just ask your community college to send it to the university. They can do it in like 5 minutes probably. And what's important though, you have to make sure that you aim for like at least 3.5 GPA if you want to transfer and be a competitive applicant. And also like talking about academics for community college, some universities may require you to finish a certain number of credit hours. So jadi basically itu credit hours is equivalent like harus ngambil berapa kelas lah intinya gitu. So you need to check with the university minimum requirement-nya if you want to transfer itu misalkan harus ngambil 45 credit hours. That's usually equivalent to like 3 semesters worth of community college, which is around maybe like 12 to 15 classes gitu. Okay, so that's that for the academic records or transcript. And then next is TOEFL or IELTS, or ya, bukan N, or. So national curriculum for high school kids in national curriculum and international curriculum, take it. Okay, some international curriculum schools maybe don't need to, tapi just to be on the safe side, just take it. Yeah, and for community college, usually they don't need to because kan kalian bakal ngambil TOEFL kan, pasti kan for community college you need to take TOEFL or IELTS. Usually it's still apply, maksudnya belum expired gitu. Tapi kalau udah expired, again nggak ada salahnya ngambil lagi juga. Tapi you need to check with the university first, because some university may have different requirements for that. So and then next in line is SAT or ACT. As of last year, SAT, ACT is optional because of COVID and everything. And I think this year they will also say that it's optional as well. But it is highly recommended for high school students to take it. Community college students don't have to. Because basically kan udah ngambil kelas di community college kan. So itu udah basically show your preparedness for college. And ACT is basically a test to tell them universities whether you're prepared or not for university gitu ya. So again, highly recommended if you take it, and especially if you take it and do well, really well, like 1450 and above out of 1600, kayak ya flex a bit lah, pamer dikit gitu kan, sapit aja gitu. Okay, and one of the most important ones is essays. So essays and CV nih for high school and community college students harus ya. Ini non-negotiable basically, especially essay-nya. The essay questions for high school students basically kurang lebih sama lah semuanya gitu. The difference being community college students sometimes ada several 1 or 2 different essay prompts yang you have to answer, and one of them is basically a little bit of like a personal statement. So it's basically kayak kenapa mau transfer to that university gitu. Okay, so but at the end of the day, you need to do your research on your universities and stuff. Jadi jangan cuman asal ngecap aja gitu ya. Kayak harus ada basisnya gitu. And CV is basically your profile, right? So dengan cerita dia bilang exploration, building their profile. Nah itu semua di dump aja ke CV, your CV gitu. Okay, and usually CV-nya can be in the form of actual resume, or it can be biasanya in the application like Common App or UC application platform itu ada dimasukin. Oke, activities apa aja yang you've done gitu kan, kayak achievement apa aja yang you've gotten so far. Itu that's basically in a way it's a CV, tapi they ask it in the form of like sections, different sections gitu. So but at the end of the day, preparing your CV beforehand and having a 1 or 2 page CV, itu will be good for you because it will be easier for you nanti buat masukin ke application. Basically udah ada semua gitu, tinggal masukin aja. Maybe tinggal copy paste or something, and which saves you lots of time, especially kalau misalkan isi application yang mepet ya. Hopefully enggak, hopefully enggak. Yeah. So interviews, these are optional. Depending on the universities. So usually yang do interviews itu yang lebih kayak Ivy Leagues gitu ya, atau maybe like top 50, I would say, like top 30 gitu yang biasa do interviews. And they will try to interview all applicants if possible, basically. But jadi interview ini you have to check on the websites, on the university websites in the respective university's respective website, and see if they're doing interviews or not. But for sure, Stanford, MIT, and Ivy Leagues, they do. Yeah, and maybe a couple of like business-oriented private schools juga, like business as a business major itu they do interviews. And ini like a sportive, ini yang also equally important actually, but overlooked by a lot of students and applicants, is letters of recommendation. So people usually used to think oh ya udah yang penting ada surat aja ya gitu. And kayak sekolah in national curriculum biasanya tuh the teacher-nya kayak have like some kind of like a template for recommendation letter. Itu kalau bisa make it personalized, kayak maksudnya make the recommendation letter personalized, don't just use like a template gitu. So but basically it requires you to ask for recommendation letters from at least one school counselor and 1 or 2 teachers. That's for high school students ya, yang in national and international curriculum. And for community college students, nggak harus dari your high school teacher atau nggak harus dari your high school counselor. It can be like your community college professors, or if you've done internships after your first year in community college, you can ask for their recommendation letters. Atau I mean, you're in like an organization and doing some community service work, and you have a supervisor there, ask for the recommendation letters juga. Okay, so yeah, so those are like the requirements. And also here ada satu ketinggalan for national curriculum students. Okay, you can take AP test. That's another form of a standardized test type gitu, yang basically yang sesuai dengan American curriculum ya, gitu. Yang it's very widely accepted and easily transferable. If you want to take more challenges, take the AP test, and if you score well, which is maximum score of 5, it will show that it will show that you are academically ready, and it will boost your academic profile. Right. So hopefully nggak terlalu boring so far ya. So okay, next. So itu kan tadi requirement-nya ya. So now basically for like academics it's straightforward. Yang penting grades, right? But what about the other things? Tadi kan I said about like US universities being holistic, right? Apa sih yang dilihat gitu? So they look at this 3 P, passion, potential, sama personal qualities. So passion tuh basically it shows whether you have focus and drive. So let's say it applies to academic juga sih. So if it's academic, what's your focus, what's your drive, what's your passion in academic. Jadi misalkan you want to major in, I don't know, biomedical engineering or something related to biology or maybe medical gitu kan gitu, medicine. Your passion or focus and drive-nya ya, you do some research like related to, let's say medicine ya, research on diabetes atau apa gitu. So it's academic related, right? But it shows your focus. You are focusing on medicine, maybe specifically diabetes or something, or some certain type of disease gitu. And you have the drive to actually go through the trouble of writing a research paper yang maybe nanti bisa publish. So that's passion. Now potential, it can be a lot of things, which can be leadership, intellectual, curiosity, and other things juga gitu, kayak maybe some certain types of talents or something gitu ya. And potential again through your extracurricular activities itu biasa you can show your potential through your extracurricular activities. Yeah, so maybe like teamwork gitu kan. Yeah, you work really well together as a team, and you're like a natural leader, things like that. So that's potential. And personal qualities ini basically anything yang can show that you have or you will have future contribution to the community or at least to the university community dulu ya gitu. And for diversity, jadi ini contohnya yang kayak bisa dibilang kayak yang random stuff. Jadi contohnya you have a talent like you can juggle 6 balls at one time gitu. That's like a unique talent kan gitu. It's some kind of like personal quality yang sebenarnya kan if you can juggle like multiple balls at once gitu, it shows that you can concentrate gitu kan, you can multitask. Tapi ya in a form of activities yang maybe bisa dibilang random tapi at the same time unique gitu. So top US universities they look for these 3 P's gitu ya. And what I'm saying is just the tip of the iceberg. Jadi kayak if I want to talk about it, I can talk about like an hour or so, or maybe more. But I won't do that. So kasihan gitu. So kasihan kalian terbosan gitu. So alright. So gimana sih develop 3 Ps tadi? I already said a bit kan ya. Kayak can be through academics, can be through extracurricular, and can be through organizational or leadership avenues gitu. And I'll talk about a bit more detail for each of these 3, yeah, and how you can develop your 3 Ps. So first, good academics kan, from your academics, you want to show for potential in academics, you want to show that you are basically can follow the rigorous curriculum of that university that you're applying for, especially these top universities. Gitu. So how do you do that? You do that by showing that in high school, okay, you excel in your subjects. So basically that's like ya dapat nilainya at least mungkin bisa bilang kayak semuanya on average B plus gitu ya, B ke atas gitu, above B. And if you can get like all A's, that's even better gitu. But that shows that you're doing well in high school, so you might do well. You have the potential to do well in our university, which we boast to have rigorous curriculum gitu ya. So and also like for like IB and A-level curriculum students, yeah, choosing the right subjects for your intended major itu juga important. So if you want to do or take engineering or STEM related major, obviously the subject that you want to take ya itu kayak physics, bio, chem, like math yang high level atau yang extended further maths gitu-gitu ya gitu. So that basically shows kayak kamu udah kelihatan from high school you want to focus in STEM. If it's business, jadi take-nya yang economics, business management, other social sciences gitu. And for building passion in academics, ya like tadi aku bilang, you can do some kind of like a research project or write a research paper on like something yang benar-benar nerdy lah. Intinya you want to show that you're a nerd in that subject or in that major that you're applying to. Jadi kayak kalau business ya you can do like stock analysis, misalkan recent events right now ya kayak kenapa nih inflation going crazy, right gitu. Maybe you can do like some historical analysis why it has reached up to this point. It can be with the war gitu kan, or can be with emang other things like stock market crash, things like that gitu. And yeah, so that's like building your passion, your potential, and personal qualities ya. Nanti you can show it through I guess other things yang academic related, basically showing how nerdy you are and how maybe you can like invent something yang maybe sounds like aduh ini kok nggak penting amat sih, tapi for you it's useful gitu loh, and you actually can make it and it's not easy to make gitu. That's personal qualities juga gitu. So next, why should, kalau misalkan I talk too fast, maybe someone can just cut me ya. By the way, I guess I feel like I talk too fast. So, but anyways, so why? So extracurricular activities ya. Ini that's another way for you to show your passion and potential and obviously personal qualities. So why should you do extracurricular activities? Because first it can help you figure out your interest. Ya, kalau misalkan kamu belum tahu, let's say you guys sekarang yang ada di kelas 9 or lower, or maybe kelas 10 or lower, masih belum tahu kan mau major apa, nggak tahu, gitu kan. So that means you haven't explored enough. So how you explore is you participate in extracurricular activities. So that can be like joining your school clubs or ikut clubs di luar sekolah, joining some organizations yang it can be student-led organizations or it can be like a professional national professional non-profit organizations, things like that. So or maybe sports juga bisa gitu ya. So that's basically for the sake of figuring out your interest. That's the first thing. Figure out your interest ya. And now after you explore, let's say coba-coba banyak gitu ya. And then after some time, there should be like a trend where you are more inclined to do A than B, or you are inclined to do C than D. Jadi that's usually how you figure out or you start to find out what your interests are. Once you kind of know what your interests are, you can focus on that and develop new skills and knowledge in that interest. And all this will lead to your profile building in the end. Okay, the key here is to be committed. Yeah, and because ini kan it shows your passion. Why? It shows your passion by, let's say kamu sportsnya, let's say I'll pick like a random sport. Misalkan apa sih? Apa ya? Maybe sword fighting kayak I don't know apa sih, anggar, fencing misalkan. Itu kan it's a bit unique ya for maybe Indonesian students gitu kan. You guys know kalau di Olympics kita nggak ada yang fencing probably gitu, nggak ada negara Indonesia ikut fencing gitu. Jadi misalkan kamu ikut fencing gitu, itu kan it's something unique ya. Oh, anak di Indo ada yang suka main fencing ya, and it's like a specific unique passion gitu kan. If you do it for like a couple of years and ikut lomba-lomba internasional gitu misalkan, you don't have to win ya. You just have to show that you're active in it gitu. And itu kan can show potential juga kan. Oh, ini for if you look at it from the university's perspective, they can see that kita ada a good fencing team gitu misalkan. Oh, ini ada satu anak dari Indo nih, lumayan unik nih gitu. And we want diversity. Then itu basically it will gain the attention of these universities gitu. And personal qualities juga kan kayak kan lumayan random ya, kok anak Indo bisa suka fencing gitu. So ya, jadi kan it's like some uniqueness lah for your personal qualities gitu. And ini where to start, tadi aku udah mention a bit ya gitu. I think I was a bit ahead on the slides, but you have to explore breadth first. Jadi kayak tebar jala dulu semua, because you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know, so you need to try every single thing that you can find gitu. And if you're in grade 9 or grade 10, this is the perfect time for tebar jala gitu. And try out, do some research, do some googling, coba-coba join clubs yang nggak suka nanti di drop in the future, watch YouTube videos, sama paling gampang reflecting, pikir-pikir sendiri gitu ya. Which sometimes it's like a bit boring, tapi ya you can do it lah gitu. And after breadth, you go into more depth. Jadi breadth kan trying to figure out kamu sukanya di mana. Kalau udah mulai tahu, then you focus it more and make like a certain personal projects do like a specific research, like a research paper, for example, doing some experiments, ikutan competitions, and do internships in these things that or in these fields that you are interested in. And if you want to take it further to the next step, you go to the advanced level. In this level ini, you go into advanced level. Jadi basically, it's more like quality instead of quantity. So in the beginning, you prioritize quantity kan, because you want to try to figure out as many things as possible. Figure out what your interest is. If you already know what your interest is, then you should just focus on that and just go super hardcore in that field. So like I said tadi, again, the example would be medicine. Let's say diabetes, itu kan very specific ya, diabetes disease gitu misalkan. Atau maybe some Alzheimer atau Parkinson's apa gitu. You write a research paper and you do internships in hospitals, talk to doctors specialized in that, things like that. Itu kan advanced quality. You're only doing like one or two things, tapi you do it like all hardcore gitu. So yeah, so that's about extracurricular. And for leadership qualities, nah ini automatically with extracurriculars itu and leadership itu come hand in hand. So again, an example of going hardcore is you make your own organizations and you make contributions, like a lot of contributions gitu ya. So itu in a way that will develop your leadership, which can be like a good communication, a good decision making, can be like positive, encouraging to your teammates, to your team, taking responsibilities. Itu kan leadership qualities yang important ya gitu. And you can only develop that if you are a part of a team sebenarnya. Because a leader is you're leading someone, you're not leading yourself only kan gitu. So to show that you need to work in a team, and to work in a team, one of the ways is to create your own organizations and again go hardcore in that. So maybe you can make like a high school diabetes awareness association or whatever. I just made it up. Again, you can do that. Gitu. So by doing more advanced extracurricular, basically you will automatically gain and hone that leadership experience. Okay. So now, tadi kan ada extracurricular, ada leadership, ada academics. Nah, to make it competitive again, kalau bisa do advanced activities, get good grades, demonstrate your leadership through your organizational activities, and show that you have a certain academic and or personal interest. Gitu. Nah ini semua, if you combine them, you will get your personal brand. Ya, jadi personal brand itu tadi kan Cito udah ngomong personal brand juga. Apa sih sebenarnya? Jadi anggap aja kayak I like to use this a lot. Maybe it's overused. Maybe you've heard this a lot. Tapi ya, just to make my point ya, gitu. Kalau if you think about cell phone sekarang pikirnya apa? Apple sama Samsung kan, gitu. Before that apa? Nokia, gitu. So itu kan brand kan. So jadi orang begitu mikir, oh HP apa ya? Nokia, Apple, Samsung, gitu. So your personal brand is how can you make yourself to be like Apple or Samsung yang stand out. Jadi orang kalau kepikiran a certain thing, kepikirannya kamu, gitu. They think about you. So in this case, you want to appeal to the admission officers to like, oh anak dari Indo. So anak dari Indo, oh ini kepikiran si A, si B. Kenapa? Because there are certain qualities yang emang yang menonjol, let's say like fencing or like going crazy on like researching on diabetes, even though you're still in high school, things like that. Okay, so that's personal brand. Oh, and yeah, basically, yeah, I already said that. So I'll skip this slide, yeah. So academic interest, personal interest, your strength, personalities, core values, what you're passionate in, combined together becomes your personal brand, right? So, okay, you have this personal brand. Itu kan, okay, tapi how do you convince other people of your personal brand? That's why universities have essays and the statement. So all this information that you have built for the past few years, i.e. your personal brand ini, itu you have to ada outputnya dong. Outputnya itu is in the form of essay ini gitu. So in this essay, so university usually have on average 2 or 3 essays, sometimes 4 essays that you have to write. So in these essays, you want to write about this, your strength, your passion, your extracurricular activities, your commitment, your consistency, some interesting stories that happen when in your organization lah ya. At the start, maybe something funny, something important, things like that. Yeah, so you have to output that into your essays. Now, itu how to build your competitive profile. So to take it up a notch, let's say you want to find some scholarships, gitu. So same thing basically, and the requirements. So I'm going to talk about undergraduate and graduate scholarships ya, gitu. And for undergraduate scholarship requirements, they will need your academic records, they will need your essay or personal statement, they will need your letter of intent, which is basically kayak kenapa you need this scholarship. Kalau essay basically kayak why you deserve it. Your high school diploma, again, it's grades. Udah lulus atau apalah, bukti udah lulus high school gitu. Any awards, experiences, certifications, that's basically CV. Your personal info, jadi isi filling out applications, and your income tax return or your household income tax return or like certification of indigency, basically kayak itu to show kayak why a proof that you really do need scholarships gitu. So in a way, applying for scholarships for undergraduate or S1, it's kind of like you're applying for your second university application. Gitu. Yeah. So usually you do it in parallel. Gitu. So yeah, makanya we said kick it up a notch. So more work for you, tapi rewardnya ya you get scholarship, gitu, which I think it's worth it if you can get it. Gitu. Now, scholarships for graduate school or S2, S3 itu bisa need-based, bisa merit-based, and bisa research-based. So need-based basically emang yang butuh ya, gitu. Want to pursue further education like beyond S1, tapi ya you need help with the finances. So that's need-based. Kalau merit-based, basically you flex and show that you indeed deserve it, gitu loh, merit-based. Jadi so kayak, oh, you're like the top students, and oh, during undergrad you somehow invented something, help your professor in the research gitu. And yang ada lagi yang namanya research based, jadi you are applying for S2 S3 specifically to the research, and thus you'll be granted research scholarship gitu. And for postgraduate or S2 S3 applications for scholarship, it's more academic and more professional instead of like filling out another university application, right? Nah, requirements-nya mirip-mirip lah. You need some kind of like a written statement or cover letter, basically showing that why you deserve or you need the scholarship. Professional reference itu jadi basically kayak letter of recommendation ya, from your previous boss, your current boss, if you're working before you pursue S2. Personal references itu jadi kayak maybe like your colleagues gitu. And transcripts itu kan your S1 punya grades, your CV and resume itu needed, and for some scholarships like LPDP, they will need some offer letter, unconditional offer letter. Jadi basically they can give you the money if you get accepted dong, gitu. Mereka nggak mungkin kasih duitnya before you get accepted, gitu. Yeah. So okay, just for a quick example ya, for students yang apply for master's degree, itu we have this student, she got into Columbia for Masters of Public Policies. Yeah. So how did we help her? So profile-wise, she already have a strong profile. Basically, she has like specific passion, which is helping people in rural areas. So she even kayak pergi ke rural area di NTT gitu ya, help people there to like with their water conditions, with their talents. Kayak mereka ada apa kain tenun ya namanya ya. So itu di help disebarin ke Jakarta and ke Indo gitu. So that's her passion kan gitu, to their extracurricular activities. And her S1 itu from Melbourne, University of Melbourne. So it's a good school, right? So so grade-wise juga bagus. So what we help her is that we help her with how to strategize her application. Okay, which part untuk yang harus ditonjolin, which part yang benar-benar harus di hone further in her essays, things like that. So we brainstorm for ideas, essays, and activities to do. And in this case, activitiesnya dia udah ada semua. She just need to like maintain it, or perhaps expand it further. Yeah. So we help her with this brainstorming for essays, and she had the essay then. So at the time she's like not confident gitu, like she feels like, aduh, kok I feel like it's not good enough ya, the essays gitu. So we help her with boosting her confidence lah gitu. So how we read her essays and we help them sharpen her essays, and also we link her to professionals and also like recent master's graduate from top schools, and ask them to read her essays juga for feedback. And they said, kayak, oh bagus kok gitu. It's better than my essays. Some said that. So itu kan confidence boost ya gitu. So from there her confidence is boosted, and then interviewnya went well. She got into Columbia. Gitu. Yeah. So itu just a short version ya, because I think I'm running out of time. Takut dicuap-cuap sama my team. So okay. Anyways, so okay, that's that. And now, last but not least, university shortlisting strategies. Disclaimer: this is information dump. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, gitu. Sorry. So yeah, we try to compress this, but this is the best we can do. But yeah, we'll share this with you guys. But intinya, the things that you can do to shortlist your universities is you look at 4 main categories: academics-nya, the communities and the social organizations there, cost, biasanya the most important one, cost, yeah, and career development, which is equally important. I think second to important is career development, because you're going to college, you're going to universities, itu to have a career kan, gitu, or at least start with a career before maybe you want to start your own business. So and in academics, you can research for the core, the core of the, misalkan is research or liberal universities have a flexible curriculum or structured curriculum and so forth, academic rigor and stuff, and learning stylesnya gimana, academic supportnya apa aja. So usually that's available in like blogs, usually if you want to be like more more objective atau bisa dibilang ya, karena if you read from the university, obviously university will post their academics, post their communities gitu kan. Jadi the most honest opinions ya from the blogs kan, so you read blogs gitu. So and communities ada apa aja in the universities, organizations apa aja yang can be aligned with your passion and interest, and cost straightforward, tinggal jadi angkanya tinggi atau rendah gitu ya gitu. And your career development, okay, are they more focused on helping you doing research, aka academics, or are they more focused in helping you get a job out there? It depends on what your goal is. You should pick accordingly. And for shortlisting universities, we usually use 3 divisions, 3 sections of universities. Jadi we call it rich school, competitive schools, and safety school. So rich school itu basically your dream schools yang very hard to get into, or maybe we can say like it's a bit of a long shot gitu, tapi ya coba aja gitu. So ini how do you know that it's your rich school? It's basically kalau let's say your academic profile-nya itu it's lower than the average of those accepted in that university like in the previous years gitu. So that's basically like that will be a rich universities, and they have low acceptance rate. Usually we categorize it below 30%. So Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Berkeley. So Berkeley is like, I think 16, 15%. Stanford is like single digit percent. So yeah, so competitive is universities that you are likely to get in. Your academic rank right now or academic profile tuh kurang lebih 11-12 sama yang accepted there. Gitu, that's competitive. And the acceptance rate is like a higher, I mean around 50% lah, 50% ke bawah. Jadi kayak itu, that's usually a competitive school. And safety school is basically yang I would say 90% you get in lah. Gitu. Here it says acceptance rate is 70%, but you individually you have 90% chance of getting it. Like I said, we don't guarantee. Yeah, we don't guarantee you getting accepted, but we can help you strategize to maximize that percent number. Gitu. And most likely, safety schools too is more affordable compared to like rich universities. Gitu. Okay, so yeah, sorry nih, mungkin sedikit panjang ya my talk. So I'll just basically all these 40 minutes itu can be cut into 4 bullet points. So first is to be a competitive applicant, you need to engage in an advanced and targeted extracurricular activities to build your personal brand. So jadi contohnya tadi yang aku bilang kayak doing research in diabetes, very specific. And if you want to be more ambitious and win a scholarship, make sure you research thoroughly and prepare early to meet the requirements. So I think you need to prepare like maybe 6 months to a year before. Gitu. You need to know that you want a scholarship, and you need to figure out requirements apa aja. And make sure that the universities that you apply to itu is according to your criteria and capabilities. Cocok nggak sama you gitu. And maksudnya kayak your profile sekarang kayak maksudnya is it too far-fetched atau enggak. Jadi maksudnya jangan apply semuanya tuh rich universities. Gitu. Itu basically kan kayak ya very risky ya. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And having a mentor to support you during your admission process and scholarship application process itu is a great help, especially for confidence boost, for kayak aduh nggak yakin apa nih, double checking information, gitu-gitu. Alright, so yeah. Sorry nih kelamaan, tapi I'll be open for Q&A, maybe tapi nggak terlalu lama ya.
Maybe we can answer like 1 or 2 questions, kayaknya 1 atau 2, oke. Apa ada pertanyaan dari audiensnya? Adakah? Mungkin bisa ditulis dulu sambil nungguin questionnya, mungkin boleh ke next slide dulu sekalian. Jadi abis ini kita bakalan ada another session lagi. Itu sampai sore sih hari ini, agak sore. Jadi the next one ini tentang complete checklist to boost your top university application chances. Itu bareng sama University of British Columbia and Northeastern University. Terus nanti kita juga bakal ada virtual booth juga. Nanti bakal breakout room dan kalian bisa ketemu sama admission officer or like representative dari uni, dan juga ada talk terakhir hari ini tuh elevating your self exploration stage through personality type by Live Talk Asia. Terus kita bakal lanjut lagi besok gitu. Ada pertanyaan nanti kita bakal jawab sebentar. Aku tanggung next dulu aja ya. Ini ada feedback kalian yang bisa isi supaya kita bisa perform better juga, atau mungkin ada pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang belum kejawab bisa taruh di sini juga. Terus nextnya ada 2 event yang aku mau invite kalian. Jadi yang pertama adalah Academic Tutoring Foundation Week. Kalau misalnya memang kalian struggle atau ada bingung-bingung mengenai picking the right subject atau strategi untuk belajar gitu. So we are calling all A-level and IB students, itu bakalan 2 minggu lamanya. Nanti kalau misalnya mau ini free ya, event ini free, program ini free. Jadi nanti kita bakalan kasih strategi how to learn better supaya kalian nggak overwhelmed waktu belajar kayak different subjects at school gitu. Langsung masuk aja ke studyroom.all-in-edu.com. The next one untuk kalian yang lagi ada di kelas 11 dan 12 bisa ikutan ke University Application Bootcamp kita. Ada untuk Ivy League University Application, Oxbridge, ada UC, dan ada Asian. Asian ini berarti kan Hong Kong, Singapura, dan beberapa tempat lainnya. Nah, jadi di sini kita bakalan belajar how to build a personal brand, designing top academic resume and essay, dan juga sharing session sama former top University Admission Officer. Jadi mungkin karena kita nggak affiliated to university, kita nggak bisa panggil langsung admission officer-nya untuk bener-bener ngajarin, unless untuk hari ini mereka juga kan willing untuk ketemu kalian di Edu Fair hari ini. Cuma for this specific application bootcamp, kita sebenarnya undang former top University Admission Officer untuk nambahin info yang kalian akan dapat hari ini dengan expertise mereka yang dulunya juga sorted application gitu. So there are a lot of questions that we can answer later. Boleh ditinggalin aja di feedback slide nih, tolongin sambil yes, jadi pada bisa dengerin jawaban dari ini sambil mengisi feedback form. Nah, jadi aku sendiri udah dapat pertanyaan ini. What should I ideally do as a high school senior right now? Mungkin kalau ini berarti assuming di grade 11 mungkin ya. Ideally sebenarnya harusnya by that time tuh ngerjain apa sih nih di grade 11 itu?
Grade 11 atau grade 12 maksudnya senior kan ini?
Oh, grade 12 sekarang. Okay.
Iya, grade 12. Ideally by grade 12, my voice kedengeran kan ya? Right, yeah. So ideally by grade 12 itu most of your profile building stuff itu udah pretty much sorted out. Ya, jadi kayak misalkan if you're doing research, kayak researchnya lagi finishing up gitu ya. And ada organization apa, udah ada a lot of contributions to the communities gitu. Nah, jadi itu semua udah up and running, and tinggal operations saja gitu. And by then, jadi kamu biar bisa fokus on basically mengsortir all these profile building explorations, academic stuff yang you've been doing. Let's say di summarize lah ya, into like a couple of pages gitu. It can be in from CV, bisa kayak buat notes coret-coret, and use that itu for your essay topics. So ideally by starting grade 12 gitu. Jadi biasanya kan after summer holiday udah mulai masuk grade 12, itu tinggal prepare tulis essay. Ideally sih gitu ya, ideally. In reality biasa banyak yang meleset-meleset dikit lah. tapi ideally begitu. Yeah.
Jadi kalau untuk submissionnya untuk itu masih kayak biasa ya. Kalau untuk US tuh berarti di bulan Oktober.
Kalau US tuh starting deadline-nya itu deadline-nya mulai paling awal tuh November 1. That's for early action atau early decision. Tapi yang kalau regular decision-nya yang paling awal is November 15, which is UW yang di Seattle. Yeah. And UC itu November 30. Tapi yang the rest itu biasanya mid-December, early January, mid-January, February gitu.
Berarti kalau misalnya yang biasa-biasa gitu, maksudnya yang others tadi di US, berarti itu timingnya lumayan mirip-mirip sama yang non-US ya. Jadi kayak abis dapetin semester 1 result, dan disubmit di bulan Januari ya, kurang lebih ya.
Iya. Itu beda-beda tiap university, tapi around that time. Jadi intinya to summarize between November to February lah.
Iya, berarti yang buat kalian yang mau apply ke US, especially buat kayak early decision gitu, pasti itu cut-nya lebih cepat gitu. Baru nanti abis itu ada deadline yang buat application yang biasa-biasa sama non-US punya gitu. Ada pertanyaan lain, dan semoga itu bisa menjawab pertanyaan yang tadi direct message langsung ke aku. Kalau misalnya tidak ada, I want to close the session karena kita mau lanjut lagi supaya nggak ngaret, dan you guys can have a quick break juga. Mungkin last pesan-pesan aja dari Kanik untuk teman-teman yang di sini atau parents or teachers yang mau apply untuk tahun ini.
Oke, kalau yang pegang apply tahun ini, start brainstorming for your essay ya. So how you can do that ya? Look into their websites kayak universitiesnya essaynya apa aja. Start thinking about it, make an outline, and then start writing. Jangan mepet lah. Start from now. gitu.
Start from now.
Good.
Walaupun disappointnya masih nanti di bulan.
Iya, believe it or
November.
not, kayak even if you start now, ujung-ujungnya tetap tetap mepet gitu loh. Tapi maksudnya ya makanya start early aja gitu loh, biar you have like a more refined essay.
Yeah.
Kalau untuk yang belum apply this year, ya just focus on finding your interest. Kalau belum ketemu, kalau udah ketemu, just dikerucutkan lah ya, itu kayak your interest apa, just go way hardcore into that. Remember, it's quality over quantity.
Yes.
Ya, gitu.
Oke, kalau gitu. Thank
Yeah.
you, Kanik, and thank you
Okay,
everyone.
thank you.
So we'll meet again di next schedule-nya nanti. Masih di ruangan ini harusnya. So yeah, just have a quick break. Thank you everyone. Bye.
everyone. Thank you for coming in. We're just going to be waiting a few minutes for a few more participants to trickle in, yeah? Okay, it's 10:20. So a few participants have been coming in as well. So thank you for those who have come, who've just entered the room. We're just going to start. Just a second. Okay. All right. So hey everyone. Today for this session, I'm going to be your moderator. And we're going to be talking about the complete checklist to boost your top university admission chances. And before we get into it, for those of you who are new here, you might be wondering who we are or who I am. So let me just introduce ourselves for a little bit. So All In is an independent university consultant. And what that means is we help grade 7 to 12 students get into their dream universities. But that's really not our end goal. Our end goal is for them to be able to pursue their dream career. And so to do that, we have a few programs. Our admission mentoring program helps our mentees go to their dream universities and later to pursue their career paths through two processes that happen in parallel. The first one is the exploration side, to be able to figure out where what kind of career they want to pursue. We help them explore their interests first. The second process is the university admission prep. And so those two things are happening in our admission mentoring program. But we also have a program that's specific to career exploration. Our most recent ones were our community empowerment program in Salatiga, which happened during the summer. There was also a program in the K Islands in Maluku. And for those of you who need a little bit of support in the academic area as well, we also have a program, a tutoring program that helps with school subjects, test prep, and writing skills as well. Now, when we help our mentees prepare for their university applications, this is the framework that we use. The first aspect that we think is important to prepare is academic performance. And this is probably the most well-known one as well, right? We help make sure that students are doing well in subjects that they need for university. And because our end goal is also to help our mentees figure out where they want to go and what they want to do, help them explore as well, explore their interests to find out what they like and what they don't like. And this exploration will eventually result in a personal brand. We help them shape this personal brand so that they stand out in their apps later. The last one is also writing skill, which is just as important as the other aspects, because oftentimes when you apply to university, the only time that admission officers will be able to get a glimpse of you and your personality is through your essays. And so it's just as important to develop your writing skills. Okay, so our speaker for today actually we were supposed to have two, but today Dita is here with us from UBC. Hi Dita. Kano was supposed to be our university rep for Northeastern, but he had something come up last minute, and so he wasn't able to be here. But the information on our slides that relate to Northeastern came straight from Kano himself. So hopefully the information will still be relevant for you who are aiming to go or apply to Northeastern. So Dita is our rep from UBC, and I might just ask her to introduce herself and a little bit about the university.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to All In for the invitation, basically, to speak at this session. I am Dita. I also go by Anindita, but that's a super long name. I know that. I am originally from Indonesia, actually. I grew up in both Jakarta and in Singapore. But in the past, I want to say almost 6 years, I've been working with university admissions across a number of universities in Canada. And my most recent job, of course, is with UBC. So in the past couple of years, I've been working pretty closely with applicants and prospective students across Asia and Europe, specifically interested in applying to UBC. Now, UBC is a top research university. We're one of the top ones in Canada, but we've also got pretty high rankings worldwide as well. We're consistently one of the top 20 public research universities across the world, and we've got a really great reputation for international student communities as well. So we're the most international university in North America. And we've got a lot of really great programs here. If you are interested in anything from business to, engineering, and if you have an interest in even forestry, natural resource conservation, and of course the social sciences, we've got a really wide range of some excellent programs. And we've also got 2 campuses in British Columbia. So one in Vancouver, for those of you who are interested in being in one of our, big cities in Canada, or if those of you who are, used to being in a big city and you want to be in more of a natural area, then the Okanagan campus in the city of Kelowna is also a really great fit. And that's our introduction.
All right. Thank you so much, Dita, for that. Our second source for today is Northeastern. And Northeastern is one of the top private research universities in the US. Their main campus is in Boston. And they are quite well known for just their research output and their research faculty as well. So if you are planning to go to the US and specifically interested in doing research, this might be one of the choices for you. Okay, so what will we be talking about today? First, we're going to go through the basics. What is the education system like at top US and Canadian universities? And then we're going to go through the complete checklist for application requirements for freshman students. And we're going to break down each requirement a little bit deeper. And lastly, we're going to be talking about what other things can you do on top of fulfilling those requirements that can help boost your chances to get admitted at these top universities. So, if you're applying to US and Canadian universities, both these countries actually consider applications holistically, right? But you do still need to do some research into each university that you're applying to and make sure that you're shaping your application according to what kind of student they're looking for. So just to have like a broad overview, in the US, most universities will use the Common App, which is like a general one-stop portal for submitting your applications. But some, like the UCs, might have their own system for that. And so you will have to check for each of the unis in your list. Now for Northeastern specifically, they don't require an additional essay on top of the essay that you will have to write for the Common or Coalition app. And what's unique about the US is also that most universities there also offer an undeclared major option when you apply. And I believe that this does not apply in Canada. Is that right, Dita?
Yeah, Canada is a little bit, how I like to frame our education system is our universities are kind of like a happy medium between the UK style and the US style. So while we do have students who have like many different interest, and they can do a combination of programs. Students do have to apply to a general area of study. So there isn't necessarily an undeclared major. You can go into, say, the Faculty of Science and do interdisciplinary studies under arts, for example, but you do have to start at a faculty, and that usually requires meeting specific requirements like chemistry, physics, math, for example. So you have to start in a general area, and then you can kind of select your majors and specializations after your first year. But every Canadian university has a little bit of a different approach approach towards it. And in terms of like our platforms, for example, in the US, they do have the Common App. In Canada, provinces have different systems. So, for example, in British Columbia, we have the Education Planner BC, which is kind of like our Common App. If you're applying to universities in Ontario, like U of T, Western, and so forth, you'll be looking at the OUAC application. So a little bit different based on the province.
Okay. So there is still some flexibility when you want to apply to Canada, but you're not entirely sure what major you want yet.
Something like that. Yeah. So I think with Canadian universities, we are 4-year degrees generally, similar to the States as well. So that first year is really like a year of exploration for a lot of students, but you do go into a general area. So you start with general sciences and then you focus on something afterwards, or you start with general engineering and then you will focus into your major, similar with arts as well. Some programs, if you're going towards something more trades related or vocational, then you could start at a program from year 1 all the way throughout the 4 years. So every program is a little bit different. Every university has kind of different systems, but in general, we want students to kind of have a bit of wiggle room in that first year, just in case you want to, change the path a little bit. We have students who transfer between programs all the time. And yeah, we just want you to be able to find something that you truly are passionate about and interested in studying. And you don't have to feel like you're starting all over again after that first year. So that's kind of the Canadian method. And a lot of these programs or faculties have their own work experience integrated into the program too. So that's why we kind of put students in these faculties or these degree programs so that they have all the support they need for that area. But in general, you can kind of think of it as like in between of the UK and the US, where you have, you start somewhere and then you kind of specialize after first year.
Okay. And for UBC specifically as well, you asked for 3 short essays, right? And we will be breaking this down further later, but I just want to give an overview that, for UBC, they will be asking for 3 short essays, and then the list of achievements and activities that you've done in high school, and also 2 letter of references.
Yes, that's right. So UBC is one of the few, I think, universities actually across Canada that has a required personal profile. So actually a lot of universities in Canada may only just look at grades. But for us, we do look at applications holistically. So we do have the personal profile as a supplemental piece of your application, where we want you to kind of share more about yourself, your personal challenges. I know that we're going to talk about it probably in a bit more depth in just a bit, but I will say that the personal profile is something that is a little bit unique to UBC. There are specific programs at other universities that might have an additional thing. Like I know SFU, for example, when I was working there, they required a supplemental application just for their business program. I know a couple other programs at other universities that have that little extra piece for very specific things. But for us, all of the students applying to UBC, they do have to complete a personal profile. Grades are important in admissions across Canada. So if you can imagine it like this, the grades are important for kind of opening that door. And then the personal profile or those supplemental pieces are kind of the thing that will either increase your chances and make you more competitive, or in the reverse way, if a really poor personal profile can also bring that evaluation down too.
What makes the personal profile unique to UBC?
The personal profile for us, I think for UBC, we are the kind of university that has so many different extracurricular options. Our students love to go on exchange. They love to travel. We're very global. We also have work experience integrated into our programs. So we have all of these really great programs outside of the classroom that we want our students to get engaged with. But that also, we need to attract a certain type of student who will use those resources as well. So that's kind of why we have that personal profile piece. We're also a very competitive university. So we get applications from strong students, and typically strong students self-select, and they know like, oh, I have really high grades. I have a really good chance of getting into a top university. Now, if we're receiving hundreds and thousands of strong candidates, that personal profile is going to be the thing that really makes them stand out. So when it comes down to the evaluation piece, we only have a limited number of seats, and that's kind of how it works. Is admissions is comparative and competitive. So with a student who has really strong grades and has a really strong personal profile, we can evaluate them and say that they're a really strong candidate. We also have applications from students who have really strong grades, but not so good of a personal profile. Maybe they don't reflect quite as much. And those students, while it is great to have good grades, that's not what makes a successful person at the end of the day. And that's not the kind of person that a lot of places may want to hire at the end of the day. It's really those soft skills. Is a student driven? Is a student engaged with their community? Are they contributing to society? That's the kind of student that we'd love to have at our campus.
Great, thank you. And if any of you guys were in the previous session as well, Nick was talking a little bit about this idea of creating, making sure that you show this drive, this passion just outside of school. And I think this is what will really help you stand out if you're able to show this through every single element in your application. Okay, so for the application timeline itself, for the US, they do have 2 to 3 different timelines depending on which deadline you want to meet. So for Northeastern specifically, they actually have 2 early decision deadlines. The first early decision actually coincides with the early action, and their deadline is the November 1st. And for the second wave of early decision, that deadline is 2 months later on the 1st of January. And so if you look at the table, the dates when you will be getting news as to whether your application was successful will also depend on which deadline you meet. For UBC, I think there is way less complication. Yeah. Can you explain a little bit about the deadlines and when students can expect to hear back?
Sure. So our application, we don't have early action, early decision. What we do have is just a rolling admission. So applications for admission to UBC are open sometime end of September, sometimes early October. That when it starts is a little bit dependent on the year, just how quickly we can get things sorted on our end. But most students really apply anytime from October all the way until mid-January. So there's a huge chunk of time for you to prepare your personal profile. In our application, we only need to see your just your personal information and then complete the personal profile. Let us know which 2 programs you'd like to apply to, whether they are in the same campus or both of our campuses. It's entirely up to you. So you can apply to both campuses in one application. and you can have a first choice and a second choice. So we recommend students actually to apply earlier, just because that gives you enough time to gather all of your documents. We actually require documents after the application is submitted. So once you let us know and you submit the application, we're actually going to contact you and ask for documents after that. And you have until about February 15 or March 15 to submit all of your documents to us. And then admissions comes out anywhere from early February all the way until end of April. We know that May 1st is a big deadline for US universities, as is also a big deadline for UBC offers too. So hopefully we have all of as many offers as we can out before May 1st. And in terms of scholarships, students who are applying for our need-based awards, so say you really want to go to UBC, you have superior academic achievements and extracurricular achievements, you just don't have the funding to come to UBC, you can have your school nominate you for our need-based awards, which is the International Scholar Program, by November 15th. So that's a big nomination package that you have to prepare in advance. For all other students, for all other international students, if you need-based is not necessarily you're not really qualified under that, but you do want to have a scholarship, and I'm sure a lot of you do. If you submit an application to UBC by January 15th, you're actually automatically assessed for entrance awards. And so we will tell students if they've received an award from us by, I'd say, mid to end of April. So these are one-time scholarships or renewable scholarships up to 4 years.
Okay, so it's really just for the need-based scholarships that need additional preparation on top of your application.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that's really it in terms of the general overview of applying to US and Canadian universities. But in terms of the application itself, what do you actually need to prepare to submit your application? So, oops, the interviews there is a little stray that came in early, but the first one, the first requirement that, well, all universities in the world need is your transcript. And I think universities really differ as to which grades they need your transcript from. For Northeastern, they need grades. They need your grades starting from your 9th grade. So basically your freshman year of high school. What about the requirement at UBC?
Similar, I would say. We're really looking at junior and senior level courses, but if you took IGCSE, if you did MYP, you can actually submit those as well, and that will help us determine some program-specific requirements. So I always recommend the last 4 years, and it doesn't matter whether you're IB, A-levels, national curriculum. We admit students across all curricula. You just have to send us your last 4 years, but we will focus most of the evaluation on the last 2 years and your most recent grade from grade 12. Predicted IB grades is important, predicted A-levels as well. But that first semester, like whatever you have, your most recent grades, that's what we need.
Okay, so would you be sending a conditional letter of acceptance based on those predicted grades and sending the unconditional after you get the final grades?
Yeah, that's basically how it works. So we know that you're not going to have all of your final scores by February 15 or March 15. So submit what you have to us, and then we'll use that to evaluate your application. And then once the final grades are out, that's when we can confirm your offer. Now, I know some students are a little bit nervous when they're like, oh, my grades are not out until July, or they're not out until August for the A-levels. What do I do so that I can make sure that I won't get my offer revoked? Now, for UBC, we really don't want to revoke offers as much as possible. So we actually give a little bit of leeway in terms of the final grades that you submit. We just want to make sure that you're going to be successful in the program once you come in. So complete your high school diploma, complete the IB exams or the A levels, take your AP exams as well. And then once you submit those final documents to us, you're pretty much hopefully good to go. Students who want to check, like, what is the minimum count? Like, how many points off can I get? You can take a look at our website. We actually let you know, how to keep your offer of admission. I know for IB students, when we send out conditional offers, we're not looking at your bonus points. So TOK, EE, CAS, we're not actually looking at those points because they fluctuate quite a lot when the finals come out. So we're going to be looking at a 42. And then when the final scores come in, we will use your bonus points. So sometimes that can be a bit of a cushion as well. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, that's interesting. And for the grades itself, is there a hard minimum, maybe that's specific to UBC?
We have like general ranges. So we can't give a number because it generally depends on how many applications we receive for which program, and every year the applicant's competitiveness varies a little bit. But what I would recommend is there are specific programs that are more competitive because we either receive more applications for them and maybe have limited seats. So I would say if you're interested in the Bachelor of Science or the Bachelor of Applied Science, which is engineering, international economics, our architecture program, and I think there might be another one that is escaping me right now. But there are specific programs that are a bit more competitive, and if with IB, I would aim for mid to high 30s. But if you're looking for, say, like kinesiology, forestry, or Bachelor of Art, you could aim for the mid 30s just because there tends to be a bit more room in those programs. So, for example, food and nutrition, or our land and food systems. So they have a bit more space. Now, science is like one of the most competitive programs at UBC. And I think it's because a lot of students want to get into computer science, or they want to get into biochemistry or microbiology. That's what determines how competitive that program is. But, aim for the best that you can. And then remember that there's always the personal profile that will also have a huge impact on your evaluation.
Okay, so there really isn't a hard minimum, but it really varies on each year's batch of applicants, yeah?
Yeah, and the program.
Right. Okay. So let's see what else we need for our applications. And the English proficiency test, usually the IELTS or TOEFL, but recently Duolingo has released a test that is being accepted at multiple US universities as well. Now, for this English test, for UBC, is it still required for students in international schools to take them?
If you've been studying at an international school for at least 4 years, that could be sufficient in meeting our English language requirements. But you do have to be taking English, like the most senior level, or the basically a grade 12 English. So for IB, for example, if you're taking English A, fantastic. If you're taking English B, because it is second language, we would recommend IELTS or TOEFL. I always recommend students to take IELTS or TOEFL generally, because as much as we would love to say that, UBC could be your place, we want students to be as prepared as possible. So if you're applying to many universities, I hope that you are, it's always best to have an English language proficiency test, but we actually have 9 different ways to meet our English language requirement. So I would actually recommend going onto our website, having a look, contacting your high school counselor. I'm in touch with a lot of the high school counselors in Indonesia. So they hopefully have a path to me, or if not, you can always email me directly and I could always give you some feedback on whether IELTS is required. Duolingo is a little bit different for us. It is accepted for students who are coming from countries where IELTS or TOEFL isn't available. Now in Indonesia, it is available, so that's why we recommend IELTS or TOEFL.
Okay, I see. All right. So, okay, let's move on to the next one. And the next one is really essays, and this really, really varies not just between countries, but between universities. So we're gonna break this down a little bit more later. The next one is also a list of achievements, and some universities will ask for this in the form of a CV or a resume. Some will require you to fill in your activities through their portal. And the one is also the latter, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, it's part of our personal profile.
yeah. So other optional requirements are the SAT or interviews, and the SAT test. I think this at All In we tend to advise our students who are applying to the US and Canada to still take the SAT, even though it's optional right now. But what would be your advice, Dita, for students who are not taking AP?
For students who are, so if you're not doing the US curriculum and you're not doing APs, then the SAT is definitely not a requirement either. For IB students, for example, you're doing enough exams, I feel. Even the A levels, like you've got enough on your plate. Don't worry about the SATs all too much. But if you are planning to write it and you have a really good score, like say you have at least over like maybe 1400, then you can definitely submit it because we'll include that into your application. It can, have a bit of influence maybe in your evaluation, but it is not going to disadvantage you if you're not taking it.
Okay. And the last one for interviews, I believe at UBC, this also varies depending on the program you're applying to, right?
Yes, interviews do vary. Supplemental pieces like auditions, for example, do vary as well. Like you'd have an audition for something like theater or dance or interviews. We video from programs like Bachelor of Commerce, for example. They do ask for a video interview that you pre-record on your laptop and you just submit that to your application. So there's no one like actually talking to you, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to make you nervous. Some students are a little bit nervous to do that pre-recorded video. So we actually have some practice tests as well that you can do before, just to prep you before you final video interview. And the questions are generally pretty much similar to like the personal profile. They'll ask you things about challenges or have you worked in a team or have you encountered something where you had to be creative and what was it? If you're approaching those interviews, I highly recommend the STAR method. I think we might talk about it in a bit, but we want you to be as specific as possible, draw a really strong example for your answers, and that will make you a lot more competitive.
Okay. And for those faculties or programs that do have interviews, are they optional or are they required?
For commerce, it is required. And other programs may be a little bit flexible, but generally, if you do make it towards the final round, if an interview is part of it, then it is required. But most programs don't actually require an interview, like arts, science, forestry. There's nothing additional other than personal profile. But we have a lot of resources on our website. We actually also post on our admissions blog tips to help you with the interview process if you're a little bit nervous. And I'm sure you guys also do a really great job of prepping your students as well. If you do want to ask questions about it, of course, advisors are always here to help. That's kind of my main job, is to be here as a resource for you. So, yeah.
Okay. And actually, there was one other mandatory requirement that got missed over here, but that's the recommendation letter. And for UBC, like and the personal profile, like we mentioned before, you will be asked to submit 2 letters of recommendation. But we will discuss this a little bit later. So let's start with the essays first. How do you write an outstanding essay? What are universities really looking for? For personal essays for both the US and Canada, these are really the best and sometimes the only opportunity for students to tell admission officers about themselves, their personalities, things that are personally important to you as a student that can't really be shown through other parts of your application. And so sometimes this can be, significant achievements, significant experiences, any challenges you might have overcome. Now, for the requirements for these essays, in the US, as we mentioned, there is a one-stop portal called the Common App or the Coalition App. And if you are applying through that portal, you will be asked to submit at least one Common App essay, which is limited to 650 words. And there are a bunch of different prompts that you can choose from, and you'll actually only have to choose one. But all of these are asking for, insight into your personal experiences and your personal growth. Some schools will ask you to write additional essays with prompts from them as well, on top of the Common App. Now for UBC, UBC actually asks you for 3 different short essays. And I think what's interesting is really how short they are, because the upper limit is 200 words, yeah? So what is UBC looking to see from students' essays?
So with it's really hard for me to call them an essay because they are quite short.
Yeah.
But it does range from 50 to 200 words. And the reason being is there are 3 sections where you actually have space to tell us more about yourself, either describing, how do people describe you? That's one of the questions. What are you most proud of and why? What's important to you? And tell us more about that. So they're so open-ended, and because they're so short, it almost requires you to do a lot of like a little bit of soul searching, a little bit of reflection, so that you can get right into the meat of what you want to say to us. The ones where it says it ranges from 50 max, that is the sections where we ask you to list activities that you've participated in, any personal achievements that you have, awards, for example. And some students really just tell us exactly what it is, but we want to give you a bit of space for you to tell us, like, why are you participating in this activity? Why is it important to you? How long have you been in this? So, for example, students be like, oh, I'm a captain of a basketball team. And we're like, okay, there's like thousands of captains that are applying to UBC at the same time. So what else do you have to say about that? Have you had a really challenging situation where you were, your team had really low morale and you had to rally everyone together? Or what happened if you had like one teammate that wasn't doing so well? How did you get them up to speed? So there's so many different ways to approach answering these questions. And we want you to think about, not what you think we want to hear, but we really want to hear your authentic voice, your experience. Don't tried to not push it as much as possible. We have a lot of students who sometimes write like, oh, I went on a trip and I was doing community service and now I want to be a doctor to help people. It's very great that you want to do that, but we want to be more specific in terms of how does UBC fit into that picture? Why are you choosing to come here specifically? Or what is it that, made you really choose this area of study? Was it something that you experienced, encountered? Was it something that you've been working on for a long time? Some students are also like, oh, but the pandemic, like I couldn't get involved in as many things as I wanted. And to that I say, yeah, we also experienced the pandemic. So even our admissions officers, like even me reading the personal profile, I totally understand where students are coming from. But with a challenge as big as a global pandemic, there are ways to overcome certain things. So tell us, with these changes, with these things impacting your school, your family, your community, what did you do to overcome that? How did you change or switch or pivot plans? So there's so many different ways to approach this. And I also recommend students to go onto our website, because not only do we list all the questions kind of there for you, we also give you some guidance as to what are we looking for: leadership, involvement, engagement, achievement. We want you to be, again, as authentic and as specific with your examples as possible.
Okay, so I think you've answered a little bit about what UBC is looking for in these essays. Yeah, I think this also applies for US essays as well, because they are also looking for, insight into your personal growth, especially in the past couple of years, with such an enormous roadblock in everyone's plans with the pandemic. So even with UBC's very limited word count, I would say please do not try and start them later just because you see that they're shorter. But actually, I think with a shorter limit, it is harder to pack all of what you want to say into such a short answer. What do you think, Sita?
I would absolutely agree. Having a short amount of space, it makes it harder for you to ramble a little bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I tend to do that as well myself. I'm so very guilty of that. But with a short amount of space, be really mindful about which, what you want to share with us. I would always recommend getting second opinions with what you have to say. And really, there's no time limit until mid-January for you to submit it. So you could actually look at it and sit and really reflect, think about all the things that you've been involved with in the last couple of years. It could be as simple as, being the oldest sibling in your family and having to nurture your younger sibling, having to be somewhere or someone, to support others. There's like a lot of ways to approach a lot of these different activities. And so that's why having a short account, it is a little bit of a challenge. Have your teachers take a look if they have the time and the space. Have friends and family take a look as well. Sometimes it's really hard to sit and think about, okay, how do I describe myself? I don't know where to start. I'm so many different things. Get a second opinion, talk it through, and don't be shy. I think some students, especially coming from Indonesia, I know, like, we don't want to brag because we're just like, oh, I don't want to, it seems a little bit weird to brag about myself, but absolutely go for it. We want to know what you're most proud of, and you should be proud of a lot of these activities that you've been a part of participating in and challenges that you've overcome. So tell us as much as you can about yourself with a short amount of space.
Okay. And just for a quick look into some of the possible prompts that you might get. I think these two on the left here, these are Common App prompts. And so this would be what you would find for the US. And just this one here, like if you look at these, they're looking for personal growth and how you've questioned or challenged a belief, how you responded to an unfamiliar situation, how the pandemic has changed you or your activities. And this is basically what Dita has been saying as well. So don't be afraid to talk about your experiences and even like your personal growth, as scary as that might seem. Now, just some quick tips. If you are planning to start these soon, and if you are entering year 12, you should be starting these. You want to really take your time to reflect and even think about how you want to respond even before you start writing, before you start brainstorming. What kind of message or image of yourself do you want to make sure comes across through your essay? You also, again, like Dita said, you want to avoid cliches. I think it is really easy for students to talk about their experiences, and not go into depth into how they experienced it personally. If you were a basketball captain, just using the same example, what made your experience different from every other basketball captain? And if possible, you also want to highlight other parts of you or your activities that haven't already been captured through other parts of the application. Now, for the list of achievements, what kind of achievements should you include? First of all, I think you want to make sure that you put in achievements that are relevant. And for UBC, like in the personal profile, is there a limited number of achievements or activities that you can put in?
You can put up to 5 activities. And I'm thinking some of you, maybe you're like, I'm involved with a million things. What do I choose? Like out of the 5, think about things that you've been involved with for a long stretch of time. So even something as like I've been playing the piano and I've been teaching piano for the last 5 years. That shows commitment to us. So as long as you can say a little bit about that experience and not just like, I participated in this one event that only happened this one time and for 3 hours. So if you could put something that is meaningful and maybe shows us different angles of who you are, not just all sports related, maybe something that is community service related, then it also shows a bit of breadth and diversity in your activities. But keep it relevant, keep it to like the last 5 years or so. I think that's good, or even like a little bit pre-pandemic and then post-pandemic. Yeah.
Okay. And for the letter of recommendation as well, which is mandatory at most universities for the US and Canada. Let's start with the basics. What is a recommendation letter? It is usually a written reference that you ask your teacher or school counselor to write about you. And it will include information on what you're like as a student, what you've been involved in, anything that stands out about you to that teacher. And so in asking for a recommendation letter, do you have any tips on what makes a good recommendation letter and how you can ask for one?
The recommendation letter piece is a bit of like an asterisk for Canadian universities because I think this is more of like a US admission requirements. For Canadian universities, recommendation letters are not actually required for a lot of the programs. For UBC, we require students to list 2 referees in the personal profile, and one should be someone who can speak to your activities, anything that you've talked about in your personal profile that seems to be like very significant to you, and one more academic achievements. So it could be like a teacher, someone who knows you quite well at your school, but we will reach out to them if we require a recommendation letter, but they don't have to pre-prepare one. Not everyone's contacts are gonna be like, we're not gonna reach out to everybody. It's only very select, kind of random sometimes. But yeah, so recommendation letters, I would say for Canada, if you're only applying to Canadian universities, don't worry too much about it, because we don't want to stress out your teachers if they don't, if we don't end up using it. But if you are going to contact your school for a recommendation letter for other universities, like in the States or whatnot, I would give them a lot of time, a lot of time ahead, so that they have time to write them. From the other side of the desk, I know counselors are a little bit stressed out when they're writing recommendation letters, because it's like the last week, and then like everybody contacts them and is like, I want a recommendation letter. Can you please write something for me? And they're like, oh my God, like I gave you weeks to contact me and you're only contacting me now. So give them a bit of grace and contact them as early as possible. But generally for Canada, we don't really need recommendation letters all too much unless you're applying for graduate programs. So if you want to go into a master's program or something like that, then we'll require a recommendation letter. But that's all from me.
Okay. So for UBC, actually, your referee doesn't have to be a teacher. Yeah, it can actually be like a supervisor at one of your activities.
At least one teacher, and then the other one could be from an activity.
Okay. All right. So, okay, let's move on to the next requirement. And this is optional if you aren't take the AP or high school curriculum. But question is, should you take the SAT or the ACT? For now, especially since the pandemic has started, these standardized scores are optional for those who aren't doing a US high school diploma. But if you are taking the US curriculum, they are really recommended for you to take, especially if you score highly. If you take the IB, for example, and you try and take that, and you have at least a 1400, I would say submit that score anyway, because you never know. It might be like the one boost that you need to get that good outcome. For UBC, I think you also mentioned it's just sort of like a plus point, but it won't disadvantage students, right? If they don't take it.
Yeah, that's right. If you're not planning to take it, not a problem. If you are doing the US curriculum, I think this year we're planning to be test optional. I know if you're applying to the other universities, it might help your application. So if you happen to have it and you have good grades, definitely submit it. But if you're doing all the other curricula, I think you've got enough on your plate. So don't worry too much about the SAT.
All right. So the last one is really the interview here, the last requirement that you might need to prepare. And before we go into like what are unis looking for, what is the interview process like at UBC? And you mentioned this a little bit with some programs actually just asking for like a pre-recorded interview, which I guess is just a video and not an interview per se. But for those who whose interviews aren't pre-recorded, like who will be the interviewers and how long do they usually go for?
Interviews are, I would say, pretty uncommon in Canada because most universities are really just like looking at your grades, and usually that's sufficient. And then some programs will ask for a supplemental piece. So similar to a personal profile or short essays, that's usually sufficient. For our one program, or I guess one or two programs that do require that video interview, it is pre-recorded. So you can kind of do it at a time that works best for you. Now, the reason why we don't really do like sometimes we'll do phone interviews, I think that that's more so for the architecture program because they are such a small program, and so they have the capacity to call more students. That would be just like over the phone, just chatting about, usually it's what you've written in your short answer questions or your experience, or like why do you want to do this program. But generally, these interviews are not meant to be very stressful. We're not looking for a very specific answer. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really just like, how quickly can you think on your feet? Are you a problem solver? Or, so yeah, just try as best as you can to be comfortable in front of the camera. I know with like Zoom and stuff, a lot of students tend to keep their cameras off. They don't really want to speak too much. So, it helps a little bit to look at yourself in the camera, because then you won't be so like, shook when you get that prompt and you just have like 90 seconds to answer. Yeah.
Okay. So some common interview questions that might come up are, especially if they are behavioral, like Dita said, trying to get to know you better and how you think and how you problem solve. Students might be, why do you want to apply to this major? Asking about a time that maybe you faced a conflict while working on a team. And what have you read recently that has impacted or changed how you saw the world? And these are just some examples that I think are common enough that you can try and practice answering them, so that you also have a better idea of like what kind of how are you in the interview context, how quickly do you think on your feet, stuff like that. Now, how would you practice, or how would you advise students to practice for the interview?
I would, for those interviews, I would recommend creating a list of the activities that you've been participated in, and then think about some situations in them. So they're very, common questions like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Can you tell me a time where you experienced an issue and you had to overcome them? Now, these are 3 very common interview questions that you'll probably actually have to answer when you're applying for jobs as well. So what I always recommend is answering a question using the STAR method. So it helps you focus on answering the question, and it also helps you narrow down like what you want to say. So situation, task, action, result. I'm gonna give an example. I think we'll talk about a basketball team, and then you had one of your teammates who was injured, for example, and then you had someone else come in and maybe they were just like not as strong as the rest of the team. How did you get that student to, or get that teammate to contribute or be as strong as the others? So for example, that's kind of the background, is you had one person down and you had to bring someone in and they weren't as good, but you want them to be up to par. That would be, again, the task is to help that student or help your teammate. What did you do? Your action. Did you do more drills with them? Did you practice a little bit extra with that person? How did you, approach that skill that they are maybe lacking so that they can train a little bit more, or maybe getting them more familiar with other teammates so that they can, pass to each other a little bit easier. They have that connection. So your results, maybe you had like a game or something and they did really well. That's basically your STAR method for that one scenario already. And then you can share your impact. How does it relate to your major, or how does it relate to the skills that you want to achieve? Maybe it's, showing leadership quality, showing good teamwork, showing how to connect people together, showing care and empathy for others. So there's so many different ways. That's just like one out of the top of my head that I have here. But based on your own individual experience, the more specific you can be with your example, the less cliche it will be. So that's one tip that I would have for you.
Mm-hmm. And I actually have a question here. Do the interviews impact the admission decision for accepting a student?
It does say for the Bachelor of Commerce, where we have this program or we have the interview process, it will be included in the evaluation. So you'll have your grades as one piece, your personal profile as your second piece, and then how well you score with the interview is your third piece. Now, that piece of the evaluation be evaluated by the faculty. So they get to make that call and they let us know how well you score. And then we'll accumulate your evaluation based on that.
Okay. And is the interview required from the beginning of the application, or is it sort of like a second round?
It's part of the application, not when you submit the application at first. So there are different components to your application. So once you submit your application through our general portal, you let us know which programs you want to apply for and the personal profile. Once you've got that sent to us, we're going to send you a link to submit your video interview. And we're also going to tell you to submit your documents. So there's kind of a couple different pieces to completing your full application, and then different deadlines for each one as well.
Okay. All right. So we've really come to the meat of the session here today. Aside from all of those application requirements that every student needs to prepare, what other things can students do to boost their chances or stay top of mind amongst thousands of other applicants?
This is a really good question. How do students stay top of mind? So that personal profile piece, of course, is going to be a huge piece because, as you mentioned earlier, it's really the only chance for us to get to know who you are beyond your grades. And we know that you are so much more than your grades. I would say one thing that would help you in completing that application is staying as connected as possible to the university's updates, tips and stuff that is on our website. Follow us on our socials, because then you get a glimpse of what the students are experiencing through their day-to-day life, what the programs are all about, and that may influence how you write your personal profile. So the more you know about the university, it gives you a bit more context to what do you think we're looking for in the personal profile or in your application. It's also very important for you to think about which programs you want to apply to, because we may look for specific courses that influence that evaluation. So for example, if you really want to get in the Faculty of Science, or you really want to get into engineering, you're doing well in the courses that mean the most. So math, physics, chemistry, for example. If you are looking for things like forestry or natural resource conservation or sustainability, in your personal profile, talk about those programs or talk about those things, because that will help your evaluation as well. So try to be as relevant, do some research, always do some research. And then what's also important is connecting with an advisor. Mm-hmm. This is kind of something that students don't really think about, because when they think about admissions, they're like, oh, that's like, so separate from me. I don't know if I'm going to contact them. I don't know if they really know who I am. We do. We all look into your evaluations. We read your personal profiles. We look at your grades. And I myself talk to a lot of students, and I kind of talk to them from grade 10 sometimes or grade 11, and we stay connected through email. I get to know their counselors very well. Their counselors will ask me for updates about their students, and I can say, oh, we're this far along your evaluation. Some students reach out to me if they have a problem, and I can help solve that issue on the back end. So one thing I would say, if you want to be top of mind, is to stay connected with the recruiters or the advisors.
Right. And I was just about to mention, I know that in the US, for some US universities, demonstrated interest actually helps. It might be the difference between getting your application accepted or not. And so would reaching out to not just advisors like yourself, but also maybe professors or faculty at the university, would that also help you help your application be accepted in comparison with maybe another student who has a similar profile but hasn't demonstrated that kind of interest?
For that, I'd say it really depends on the student. We don't really have a demonstrated interest checkbox for students. We know how engaged they are over time, but we don't really hold all of that information. That doesn't really influence our decision. If anything, it's really just more important for you to decide if this is the right university for you. And some of that does require, reaching out to professors or reaching out to faculty advisors or academic advisors to see, what is this program all about? What is the co-op program like? What opportunities for traveling or study abroad do I have? So it's less of a decision-making thing from our side, but it's more so for, you as a student to decide, is this the right place for you? There's no best university, it's only the right fit. So while there are like hundreds and hundreds of fantastic universities around the world, it all comes down to a decision on where do you want to spend the next 4 years? Where do you think, what university can really help you grow the most, professionally and academically? And what kind of environment do you want to be in? So if anything is important for you as a student, because you're committing and you're investing your own time and your own energy and all of that. So you want to go to a place that that you're going to love.
Okay. Hopefully that helps. From all of these requirement breakdowns and tips that we've been giving throughout the session, what next? What can you do now that you have all of these informations? So just to recap, for both US and Canadian universities, they do both look at applications holistically, which means that you want to make sure that you're not just focus on your grades, but also focus on other things as well. Manage your time so that you are able to pursue your interests outside of school. And you want to make sure that you start preparing early to be able to check off all of these requirements as well. Especially that letter of recommendation. If you're applying to the States, your counselor will be writing letters for so many students in the weeks prior to the deadline. And so the earlier you ask for one, the better the letter can be, because the counselor has more time to think about experience. You also, when you're preparing your essays, you also want to make sure that you're highlighting your personal brand and also any other aspects important to you that haven't been shown through other aspects of your application. The last thing is also having a mentor, counselor, or even university advisor to help you pick the right major, the right university and program. They can be really helpful and really the difference in helping you find the best fit for you in your 3 to 4 years of university. Okay, so let's move into the Q&A session. For anyone who has questions, you're welcome to write them in the chat or message me privately through the chat as well if you're shy. I do have a question here. Do universities consider how online learning might affect our ability to form close relationships with our teachers and consequently our recommendation letters?
That's a good question. I think that would probably be most fitting for like US universities. But in terms of, I think from like my own experience, like anecdotally, I think online learning has impacted a lot of students. So when you're thinking about your application, don't worry too much because you're not the only one who's experiencing, you know, the difficulties and the challenges of online learning. Everybody else in the world has also experienced those challenges too. So we you know, basically there have been a lot of challenges in connecting with teachers, connecting with your schools. It helps if you are able to, you know, find ways to overcome it. I know some schools have done a really great job of staying connected with students, even though they're at home. So again, I think if you're asking your teachers way ahead of time and consulting with them, I think not even just like asking them for the recommendation, but letting them know, hey, I'm planning to apply to XYZ university and I'm thinking about XYZ program. You know, what is your experience? What do you think? Your teachers have also gone to university. They've also gone through application processes. And it's also their job to support you. So they know what your previous, you know, like upperclassmen have had to go through. So they also are just as knowledgeable on that process. And I'm sure they've written lots of recommendation letters in the past. So, you know, there are, I'm sure, things that they can say about you. But it does give agency to you as a student. You do have to go out there and try your best to make those connections. And really, you know, it helps to get involved even through the chat box, right? Even through talking, communicating with your teachers, emailing them, you know, asking, checking in. You have to be really in the driving seat of your, you know, your own journey. So, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. With the online learning, it's just sort of the taking away of the school environment, but it does mean that your teachers aren't there. They're just on the other end of like an email or a message, and so it is still possible for you to try and build these relationships, especially if you are planning on asking them for a letter. Okay. There is another question on their school curriculum. So what if my school uses both the national and the Cambridge A-level curriculum? Should I present both in my application?
That's a good question. I know a lot of students are probably in that same boat. So yes, submit both. We do a blended evaluation. We can, and we have the capacity to that at UBC. So if you are applying to UBC and you're doing a mix of national curriculum, so you're taking the national exams and you're also doing A levels or doing a IB and the national, submit everything that you have, because, you know, we also know that if you're taking multiple curriculums, sometimes it actually gives you a plus point because we know that it is tougher to juggle multiple things at once. So yes, submit both, and our admissions office will make the evaluation based on your curriculum or your curricula if you have more than one. And we also do a pretty good job of making it as fair as possible across the board with other curricula around the world too. So I think that's one of the highlights and one of the benefits of being a very global university and receiving applications from almost all corners of the world. Like we have 166 nationalities represented on campus. So we have submitted or we have received documents from literally almost every single country there is. So we are very well in assessing ways.
Okay. And there another question about proof of English proficiency, which I think we've already answered here. Can I use English A-level as proof of English proficiency?
That's a good one. So what I would say is that's one of those things that does have a bit of an asterisk because what we're going to look for is the last 4 years. So we want to know, have you been in a recognized international school following an international curriculum for at least 4 years? And if you did A levels with English, then we want to see what score you have, and that would also determine how you meet ELAS. But you can, again, go onto our website because we have 9 different ways to meet ELAS. And of course, you can also contact me if you're not so sure. If you have been in an international school for, say, like 2 years or 3 years, but you're very confident that you have basically the fluency of a native English speaker, you can actually have your school support you and send a ELAS waiver request. And so we will still be able to make some case-by-case evaluations if you don't fit into those nine things. So we do our best to make sure that we're as equitable as possible because we know students change schools, we know students move from country to country, but that's why the sooner you contact an advisor, the better, because we can help you kind of guide you through that process so that you have enough time just in case you have to write IELTS or TOEFL.
Okay. All right. So we might have time for 1 or 2 more questions. But for now, what's coming next after this? We have a virtual booth for several different universities right after this at 12 and 15 minutes. And you can just enter and you can enter the relevant breakout room. And at 1:45, we will also have another talk with Live Talk Asia about your exploration. If you have any feedback, please do go to this link or let us know how we can do better. And the link is also in the chat for those of you who can't scan the code. But we have another question here. How would the personal statement look like for undeclared students? So I would say this would apply more for students applying to the States, yeah. And in that case, because you're applying to the States and the essay prompts will be more personal and not so much related to your intended major, it should be just fine. What's important is that you know what kind of goals you have, what kind of values and experiences, because those are the ones that are usually being asked in Common App prompts or the US essay prompts. So it's not like the UK where you would have to already have like your career goals figured out to write that personal statement. Okay. Another question as well. Do students from national curriculum schools who don't take SAT or IB or A levels have to submit predicted grades of our national exams, since we'll be taking the exams at the end of our academic year?
I recommend submitting as much as you can. So with the exams for us, I would say your class results are more of an indicator of success for your program. So our admissions will look more closely at your course results. So how are your grades in grade 12 and that first semester? That's going to be more of it, or will give more of an impact on your evaluation than your exam results itself. Even though we know it's important, you do need to submit it because it's part of the curriculum. But yeah, if you can submit whatever you have by March 15 for transcripts, that would be best.
Okay. Thank you. Now, just probably our last question for the session. Would including that I can speak and have interest in learning multiple languages help with my application? And I think this would really depend on what major you're intending to apply to. If you're applying to like a language related major, I would say that would definitely help with your application. What do you think, Tita?
Yeah, if you mention like which programs you're interested in, if you want to share that, that's absolutely going to be really great. But even if you're applying for like science or engineering and you have an interest in languages and you talk about that in your personal profile, that's still really awesome because at UBC at least, we actually require students to take a breadth of courses outside of their major program because we want students to be prepared for any future that comes. And I say this because when you take a program at a university, you'll notice that, you know, at the end of the day, once you complete your degree, you may actually find that your minors were what you were really passionate about, or your electives were what you were really passionate about. So having interest in multiple areas will show, you know, breadth in your evaluation and your application. But also on a personal level, like I would highly recommend, you know, sharing that with us. It's great if you have you know, a fluency of multiple languages, but it's not enough to just say that you have a fluency. You have to really reflect and say, you know, why was I interested in learning these languages? What is it about languages that really you know, what that I'm so passionate about? How can I use this in my future, whether to help others or to learn about the world or to gain a different perspective? Maybe I want to travel or something like that. The more you expand on those parts, the better. The more reason to include that in your essays.
Great advice. And a great answer to close the session. Just to, as an ending to close the session, we also have a few programs coming up that might be able to help you for those of you who are preparing for applications and for those of you who aren't. In the beginning of August, we have our Academic Tutoring Foundation Week coming up for A-level and IB students, and this is free to join, but there are limited slots available. So if you are interested, register as soon as possible. We also have application boot camps coming up in August and in September, depending on where you're planning to apply. So the links are in the chat if you need them. But that's really it for today. Thank you so much, Tita, for coming and sharing your insights into and really important information on how UBC evaluates applications as well. I hope all of this has helpful everyone. But yeah, that's really all for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for sharing your time. And I think it's like morning time for Indonesia right now.
Mhm.
While I'm based in Vancouver, I'm still available to answer any questions that you might have. Feel free to email me, and I'd be happy to support you with your application or, just to check in. I'm also going to be visiting Indonesia later this October. Hopefully, I'll see you guys at the Edu Canada Fair if you're in Indonesia, or if you're in Jakarta, or if you're in Surabaya. So I'll be there, ready to chat with any of you if you do come by. But hopefully, I'll also be dropping by your schools for some presentations too. We'll see. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your time with me.
Cool. Thanks so much, guys. See you in the next session or in any of the uni booths if you're interested. Thanks.